Aloha, and welcome to the University of Hawaii West Oahu's Research and Writing series. While this 4-episode series, which is a partnership between the library and No'eau Center, is intended primarily for introductory level students, students in advanced courses may also find it useful. My name is Karina, and I'm one of the librarians here on campus. I work primarily with the Education and Social Sciences divisions, and I'm excited to work with you as you complete this workshop. Joining us later in the series will be Robin and Becca, both of whom work at the No'eau Center. Robin is a tutor coordinator, and Becca is their learning and success specialist. Together, we are here to empower you so that you feel confident with research and writing. The second episode in this series explores the research process. In this episode, we'll be talking about the different sources you'll encounter when conducting research, some searching tips and tricks that will help you when you're ready to start finding information, and we'll dive into 2 of the library's databases to get you comfortable with using library resources. We'll then examine ways to evaluate websites to make sure that the information is credible and reliable, and how to take notes to maximize your time and effort. In each episode of this series, you will need to watch a video, then complete the accompanying quiz to get credit. View our website for more information. I want to preface this episode by letting you know that research is a process. When you're conducting research, you may at times feel like you're drowning in information. Our hope is that this workshop will make the research process less intimidating and better equip you to utilize useful search strategies and the tools that are built into the library's databases to streamline the entire process for you. When tackling a research project, keep in mind that there are different stages you'll be going through. Once you've identified a topic, you'll then have to search for resources, read them, evaluate them to determine what it is they're saying, and then eventually, when you've compiled a useful collection of research, examine it as a whole to see what it says about your research problem. At this point, you may find that your research doesn't meet your need, so you may need to start all over again. That's okay. But it's very important to keep all these different stages in mind so that you ensure you have allotted enough time to move on to the next step, which is synthesizing your research and writing the actual paper. So let's talk about information. We live in a very information-rich world. If you think about it, you can access millions of records or articles with the push of a button. So because of that, it's important to know how to use information to your advantage. Now, what we're going to quickly explore right now is the information life cycle. So we'll be looking at how information is produced, where it comes from, and how it changes over time. So this is the life cycle, starting from the left when information is available immediately after an event occurs, to the far right, which shows the type of information available on that topic after several years. It's important to keep this life cycle in mind when doing research, as it helps you to determine what type of research materials will be available to you. So the first stage is immediately after the event occurs. You'll likely only be able to find basic coverage about the occurrence from social media and news outlets. The authors are everyday people like me and you, as well as journalists and bloggers. The information is not as detailed as it will get further on in the life cycle. After a few weeks, popular magazines will begin to discuss the event's impact on society and culture. The authors are journalists, and commentary is provided by scholars and experts in the field. After several months, you might start to see really focused, more detailed analysis in scholarly journals. The authors are scholars researching the event's impact, and the articles are intended for other scholars in that particular field. And then at the end of the information life cycle, after 1 or more years, you'll start to see books on the topic. The books will contain really in-depth scholarly analysis and coverage by authors or journalists. So I hope this illustrates to you how long it takes to produce information on a topic or event, and showcases how much time and analysis go into the creation of journal articles and books. In this next section, we'll be further examining the types of sources you're likely to come across during your research. We'll start with books and articles, and we'll discuss websites later on in this presentation. As we discussed earlier, books are great if you want a really comprehensive, in-depth analysis of a topic. You'll want to keep in mind, though, that because it takes a few years for books to get published, it may not contain the most recent information on the topic. Also, books tend to be on the longer side, which means that you'll need to set aside time to read it. So consider that when conducting your research. With scholarly articles, they're shorter than books and highlight original research, and you can likely find more recent information on a topic. A lot of professors will require students to utilize peer-reviewed articles. The peer review process means that before a scholar can publish an article, other scholars in that field review the article to make sure that it is accurate, that it contains original research, and that it makes a valuable contribution to the field. You'll want to keep in mind, though, that scholarly articles can contain jargon, which can make it a little difficult to read. This next section will highlight a few tips that will help you when you're ready to start searching. So without further ado, let's dive into that first tip. The first thing that you want to do when you have a research question or a research topic is identify your keywords or your key concepts. In this example, my research question is, in the United States, what rights do asylum seekers have? Looking at that question, I know that my keywords are United States, rights, and asylum seekers. The next thing that I want to do is identify synonyms for each of those main keywords. And the reason that I want to do that is because we all describe things differently, so I want to find as many related concepts to find as many relevant results as possible. For example, synonyms for the United States might be USA or America, or people in the United States that have had a significant impact on legislation for asylum seekers like Donald Trump and Barack Obama. Synonyms for rights might be legal process or policy. And other ways of describing asylum seekers might be immigrants or refugees. Now again, the reason that we want to do this is because if we start searching and run into a dead end, we can try substituting some of these other synonyms into our search to try to find related results. The next tip I have for you is to search for phrases. To search for phrases, you'll want to use quotations around 2 or more words to lock the word order into place. You're essentially searching for a phrase when you use those quotations instead of individual words. So in this example, if I were just to type in rights of immigrants on the library's main search bar, I would get a little over 800 results. If I were to do that exact same search, but to search for rights of immigrants as a phrase, so I'm enclosing it in those quotations, I would reduce the amount of results that I'm looking at, so I only have 168 results now. But I can see just by looking at the titles that it's much more relevant to my research topic. The next tip I have for you is to use truncation. Truncation is when you use an asterisk at the end of a root word to search for variant word endings. So if I were to truncate child by adding the asterisk to the end of child, what I'm telling the database when I do that is to search for child, or childs, or children, or childish, or childhood. I'm essentially telling the database to try to finish that word for me. And the beauty of it is that I don't have to type out all those variant word endings. I just add that asterisk and the database does the work for me. Now, the last tip I have for you is to use your Boolean operators. Boolean operators are what you use to connect your keywords, and they are very powerful, so it's important to know how to use them properly. The first Boolean operator is AND. What you tell the database when you connect your first word and your second word with AND is that both of the terms must be present in the results that it retrieves for you. So you'll get fewer results, but you'll notice that it's much more relevant. The second Boolean operator is OR. What you're telling the database when you connect two words with OR is that either the first word or the second word or both of them must be present in the results that it retrieves for you. So it actually broadens your search. Now, thinking back to our keywords and our synonyms, I want to connect my keywords with and my synonyms with or. And this next slide should illustrate that a little more for you. So going back to our original research question, in the United States, what rights do asylum seekers have? You'll notice that each of my main concepts are on its own line and connected to each other with and. If I decide that I need to use a synonym, I'm going to connect it to its similar words using or. So using and to connect my key concepts and or to connect the synonyms. And just to make the order of operations clear, if you do add in synonyms, group them together inside of a parentheses. Now, the term databases may sound intimidating, but do not let that deter you. You can basically think of databases as a collection of information that is highly organized and that can be searched via various fields, whether it be author, title, publication, date, etc. Beyond that, you know that when you're using a library's database that the results are reliable and have been vetted for accuracy. You also have 24/7 access to full text items, and most of our databases offer special features, which include, but are not limited to, citation generators, easy share options, and free account storage. Now we're about to explore two of the library's resources, OneSearch and Academic Search Complete, which is hosted by the EBSCOhost platform. While I'm guiding you through these two search engines, notice that although they may look very different and access different types of materials, there are some similarities that will really benefit you. I hope you'll find this next section really useful and that it'll give you a better idea of the database's functionality and some of the special features that you should be using. So this is the library's website. The main search bar connects you with OneSearch, a discovery tool that searches through the majority of the library's holdings and databases. You'll receive a lot of information, ranging from scholarly articles to books to ebooks to streaming videos to journals. So it's a really comprehensive search. If you click on the button to the left of the search bar, you can change the type of search that you're doing. So if you know that you want to look specifically for articles or books or DVDs, you can limit your search to those materials. Or if you know that you like working with a specific database, like Academic Search Complete, you can change the search to a database search, then type in the title of the database. So let's see what results we'd get if we were to do a general search for United States of America and immigrant rights. Over 42,000 results. That's a lot. Now, to illustrate how powerful phrase searching is, let's do that same search, but search for the United States of America and immigrant rights as two phrases. I reduced the results to only two, which isn't enough for me. At this point, let's try broadening the search by plugging in some synonyms. Remember that you connect your synonyms to one another using the Boolean operator OR. So let's try adding in USA, Trump, and Obama. By adding in those synonyms and widening my scope, I increase the amount of results to over 3,000, and these look good. Now, every database you use will have filter options, so be sure to look for and use these tools. You use filters all the time when shopping online, whether you're filtering by category or color or size. You can think of it as the same thing, but for scholarly resources. In one search, my filter options are on the right-hand side of the page. Here I can limit by material type. So let's say I wanted to look at ebooks on the topic. If I click on electronic books, it removes all other material types from the results list. And if I want to quickly remove a filter I added, I can see that it added active filters to the top of that right sidebar. So I can click on the X next to electronic books to remove that filter. Let's say I want to view peer-reviewed articles now. I'll click on peer-reviewed journals, then under the material type category, articles. So there are 800 peer-reviewed articles on my topic. In perusing the results, let's say I like this fifth one. To view it, click on it, then click on either Available Online or Link to Online Resource. So that's OneSearch in a nutshell. I hope you feel comfortable with its functionality now, especially since it functions as the library's main search bar. Let's take some time now to explore the second resource, Academic Search Complete. Since I'm searching for a database, I'm going to change the type of search I'm doing to a database search. Then type in either the first word or the entire name of the database that I'm looking for. After I execute the search, it pulls up any library databases that could be a match. The first one is what I'm looking for, so I will click on that. And here we are on the familiar EBSCO interface. I can see by looking above the first search bar that I'm currently searching in Academic Search Complete. If I click on Choose Databases next to it, I can expand my search to other relevant EBSCO collections. I'll select a few other collections based on my topic, including some of the legal collections. Now, if I go back to that same area, I can see that I'm searching in multiple EBSCO collections, the ones that I had expanded my search to. In the first search bar, I can type in one of my main keywords. I can see that each search bar is connected to the other using the Boolean operator AND. So I'll add my second keyword to the second search bar. One great thing about EBSCO is that it tries to complete your thought. So if you add an OR after a keyword, it should automatically offer suggestions for synonyms. After I execute the search, I'll want to find the sidebar on the left of the page to filter my results. Here, I'll be sure to limit to full text and peer-reviewed articles. If you want to limit by publication year, you can enter that information here. There are other filtering options available, some of which you may find useful, so explore those while you're doing your research. Now let's say that I don't like clicking back and forth on an article to see if it would be a good fit. If you click on Page Options above the first result, then change it to Detailed, the article's abstract will be added to the list of results. So you'll be able to determine if the article is a good fit immediately. Let's say I like this first article. If I click on it, numerous tools will appear on the right side of the page. Here, if I have a free EBSCO account, I can add it to a folder, or I can email the article to myself. If I choose to use the email tool, I will receive in my inbox the link to bring me back to this record, the PDF if it's shown as available, and the citation style I choose. This is one of my favorite features of EBSCO because it delivers everything, neatly packaged, directly to my inbox. So that's Academic Search Complete. We quickly explored what OneSearch and Academic Search Complete look like and how they function. I hope you feel a lot more comfortable using both of those resources because they're useful for any discipline. In a portion of the quiz that you should be completing, take a few minutes to explore both OneSearch and Academic Search Complete, searching for resources for an assignment that you're completing. For each of the resources, tell us what you like and what you do not like. Earlier, we discussed the strengths and drawbacks of scholarly articles and books. While those are most likely what you'll be utilizing to complete your research assignments, there are some scenarios where you may need to utilize a website. One great thing about websites is that they are easily accessible. As long as you have an internet connection, you can quickly find a ton of results. Websites can be especially useful if you're trying to find the most recent information on a subject, like a trending issue or a current social movement. Because there are so many websites out there, you should keep in mind that some websites may contain biased or misleading information. You want to steer clear of those. So it's really important to conduct a more thorough evaluation of websites to ensure that the information within it is accurate and reliable. One indicator of how reliable a website is its domain name. And there are multiple types of domain names. The more pueo you see next to a domain, the more credible it tends to be. So let's start with .com, which indicates a commercial site. The information provided on these websites will likely highlight the positive attributes of whatever product the site is promoting. The next domain is .edu, which indicates an educational institution, ranging from preschools to higher education institutions. Generally, the information on these domains can be considered credible, but some assignments will allow students to create or post information to a portion of an educational website, so you'll need to discern between information created by students versus information created by the institution or a certain department or research center within that institution. The next domain is .gov. Use of this domain is restricted to official United States government entities, like cities throughout the nation or departments like the Internal Revenue Service or the Census Bureau. The information on these domains are considered to be fairly credible. The next domain is .org. These generally indicate nonprofit organizations like PBS or Red Cross. And information within these sites are typically unbiased and credible, but, and this is a big but, there are some nonprofit organizations that strongly advocate certain viewpoints over others. One example is the National Right to Life organization. So you'll need to use good judgment when utilizing .org websites. The last domain is .net, which stands for network. This is a catch-all domain, so you'll need to carefully and thoroughly evaluate websites that utilize this domain. So overall, checking domain names is one way to quickly evaluate the general trustworthiness of a website, but it's not foolproof. The more thorough way to evaluate websites, which we'll explore in this next section, is to conduct a CRAP test. While intended primarily for websites, you may also find it useful to evaluate books and articles using the criteria. The CRAP test helps you to judge the currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose of a website. Let's start with the first criteria, currency. When considering currency, you'll want to reflect on your topic and your instructor's guidelines and determine how current your sources need to be. Does the website you're looking at have a clearly identifiable posting or published date? If so, is it current enough for you? Or if not, can you find the information in a different web source that does have a clearly identifiable posting date? Our second criteria is relevance. When considering relevance, you'll want to assess whether the resource is relevant to your research topic. One way of judging that is by the amount of usable quotes the source contains. Another way of judging that is by reflecting on the overall content. Is it too elementary, too advanced, or just perfect? If it's just perfect, is it too elementary, too advanced, or just right? If it's just right, you should be able to explain the whole thing to a classmate or your instructor. If it's too elementary, that means it was probably written for children or for people with a very basic understanding of the topic, so you may want to find a more appropriate source. The third criteria is authority. With authority, you'll want to examine who the author is. Does the source have the person's first and last name? Or is it associated with a real, legitimate organization? Or is there no real authority associated with the source? Once you've identified who the author is, the second thing you'll want to examine is why that author is qualified to write about the topic. Did he or she get a degree in the field? Is he or she currently working in the field? It's good to be judgmental when considering authority. The fourth criteria is accuracy. With accuracy, you'll want to judge whether there are citations or evidence supporting the claims in the website. Are those citations leading you to other credible sources? If so, that's great. If not, find a resource that backs up their claims with credible information. The second thing you'll want to explore is whether there are any blatant spelling or grammatical errors. If so, that indicates that the source is not scholarly and is probably something that you should not be using for an assignment. The last criteria is purpose. When considering purpose, you'll want to assess what the purpose of the resource is. Is it to teach you something, sell you a product, or entertain you? You want objective information when conducting research, so aim for resources that provide you with facts and that try to teach you something. So we've reached the tail end of this workshop. Now that you have a strong grasp of the information lifecycle, the different formats of materials you'll encounter during research, how to use the library's databases, and how to administer the CRAP test, let's wrap up by discussing good note-keeping strategies. Now, this was mentioned in the first episode of the series, but notes help keep you organized and on track. When you find a quality resource, download it and keep a citation of the source readily available. When reading the source, highlight key concepts that stood out to you, the main argument of the study, and any significant findings. You'll also want to annotate the paper by adding notes, comments, and questions about the resource. If you want to annotate but aren't sure what to comment on or think about, consider the following. If you have a research question, what answer does the resource provide you with? Is it supporting or negating your findings? Is there anything you agree or disagree with? Is there something about the study that you don't understand? And last but not least, if you find a great article, be sure to peruse the sources that were cited in it. Following the breadcrumbs in this manner will lead you to similar studies that may also be relevant to your needs. So this is an example of what annotations might look like. You can see highlighted text and personal notes. If you're required to make an annotated bibliography, this is a great way to document your thoughts on your collection of research and to find common themes. Even if you aren't required to write an annotated bibliography, some students find it useful to go through the motions to gather their thoughts. With annotated bibliographies, you'll want to summarize the source, identify its strengths and weaknesses, and examine how it relates to your research assignment. From all of us on the research and writing team, mahalo for completing the second episode of the series. We hope you feel newly empowered to conquer research and that you learned new skills and strategies. Don't forget to join us for the third workshop in the series, which will be available starting Tuesday, February 19th.